Record progress. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom. This is Shanquilla Carter, or Shanquilla Yah, coming from One Vision Ministry. Today I want to speak on a level of loyalty. Abba Yah, thank you for today, the Shabbat. May your will be done in this household always. May I line up to your word. May I honor you in how I handle your word. May I not get puffed up or in pride of anything to do with my flesh, but let me be loyal to my relationship with you, loyal in my marriage, loyal in life. May you work with me so that I speak your word, but also do so in a way that represents you and not misrepresents you. When you want me to show compassion, guide me to do so. When you want me to chasten, guide me to do so. May it always come down to giving you praise. May hallelujah be on my mind when I move forward so that all praise goes to you. And though I am the speaker, I am the messenger at the moment, I am the container and I contain you. So let the focus be on what's coming out, who it's from, and what purpose is to be fulfilled with it, so that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven or in the Shamayim. Hallelujah. All right. A level of loyalty. I'm going to start off dealing with Yahuwah. Well, actually, the person that should be loyal is Adam. So let me get started. Get started here. All right, about to share my screen, and I'm going to Bereshit or Genesis 1. Okay. Let me still in front of the screen here, and let me get going. All right. And it says, and Elohim said, let us make man in our image. We'll stop right there just for a second. Yahuwah is a ruach or a spirit. So is he an image? He's a ruach, he's a spirit. So let's make man in our image. So you have a spiritual being dealing with a natural or a physical place, and thus he's making an image or a representation of himself in it. Since he's spiritual and he's dealing with a natural place, his representative, though spiritual, would be a natural or a physical manifestation. So that is the image. So it's not that he has an image himself, he's his Ruach, but this is how I take it. Let me keep going. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping creatures that creep on the ground. And Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him, male and female. Did he make it hermaphrodite? I don't take that to say that. But of course, mankind was made. He created them. And Elohim blessed them or baruched them. And Elohim said to them, be fruitful and increase, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over all the creeping creatures of the earth. So this is the directive given to Adam. So let's go moving forward. Here in Bereshit, or Genesis 2, it says, and Yahuwah Elohim took the man, Yahuwah Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. So this is the man alone before the woman was pulled up out of him. And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. It's a promise. So it's an expectation that Adam not to eat of the tree of knowledge. All right. Over here at Bereshit 3, the man was with the woman here. And so let's see. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, for that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate. This is the woman who was brought up out of man. And she also gave to her husband with her. And she also gave to her husband with her. And she also gave to her husband with her. So he was there with her, and he ate. Now remember, there was a command given to him, an instruction given to him. This being that was given dominion over the earth, as Yah had dominion over the Shamayim, this being, Adam, was given dominion over the earth, all the things in it. All he had to do was not eat of this tree of knowledge. But he was given and he ate. He basically obeyed what Yahuwah said, and he heeded to his wife. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. Where's the loin? The groin, or the private area. They made loin coverings for themselves. And they heard, excuse me, and they heard the voice of Yahuwah Elohim walking about in the garden in the cool of the day. So they heard the voice of Elohim, but notice it says walking. This is a natural thing, but we'll let that go. About in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah. So again, it's walking and from the presence of Yahuwah. Yahuwah is Ruach. So this was a representation, a physical representation that was walking and had a presence of Yahuwah, Elohim, among the trees of the garden. And Yahuwah Elohim called upon Adam and said to him, where are you? And he said, well, who is he? Adam said, I heard your voice in the garden and was afraid because I was naked. So I hid myself. And he said, this being Yahuwah, or the representative of Yahuwah, who made you know that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which commanded you that you should not eat? And the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I ate. So right there, his loyalty to Yah, he submitted and became loyal to the woman. He didn't heed Yah so that he may heed the woman. And then in the end, he didn't even take responsibility for what his choice was. He blamed Yah for the woman that he gave to be with him, that Yah gave to be with Adam. Pretty messy there to me. So let's move forward. Let's move forward. I want to deal with Lot and Abraham. So Abraham basically told by Yah to move away from his father's house. His father, if you go by other texts, was living amongst Nimrod and his people and their idolatry. And Abraham was told to get away from there. So Bereshit, Genesis 12, and Yahuwah said to Abram, go yourself out of your land, from your relatives, and from your father's house, and to a land which I show you. And I shall make you a great nation, and Baruch you, and make your name great, and you shall be a favorable person, or favored. You shall be favored, excuse me, or Baruch. And I shall Baruch those who Baruch you, and curse those who curse you. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be favored, or Baruch. So Abram left as Yahuwah had commanded him, and Lot, we call him Lot, but I believe the pronunciation should be Lot. And Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. So he was much older than most of my audience. I'm only 53 when he finally left his father's house. He was good and mature, or good and or mature age, or he was older. Let's keep moving. Now he done brought Lot into his house. He started to amass a lot of things, and of course, in him gaining a lot, Lot being around him, he starts to gain a lot. So we're gonna go with Bereshit, Genesis 13. And Abram went up from Mizraim into the south, he and his wife, and all he had, and Lot with him. And Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south as far as Beth El, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Beth El and Ai, to the place of slaughter, place of the slaughter place, which he had made there at first. And there Abram called on the name of Yahuwah. Now Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them. And look, this man Abram was so rich, and it spilled over into Lot, and that land that they were in, it was hard for all of that to livestock and everything to live in that land. So check it out. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were great, so that they could not dwell together. They were doing fine, but of course, let me go next. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. So people, Lot was supposed to be loyal to Abram, but now those loyal to Abram are having problem with those that are loyal to Lot. The ones that's dealing with Abram's livestock are having problems with the ones that's dealing with Lot's livestock. Now you would think since Abram was the one that, got them all rich, that they should fall in line. But no, basically Abram's folks loyal to him, and Lot, who's supposed to be loyal to Abram, his people loyal to him, ignoring or having issues with Abram's people. And at that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt in the land. And Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me." This man loved Lot, his nephew. From other texts, it says Lot was the brother of Sarah or Sarai. But let's continue. And between my herdsman and your herdsman, says, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsman and your herdsman, for we are brothers." He treated him like a brother. This is his nephew, his brother's son. "Is not all the land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I'll go to the right." Yah was showing favor towards Abram, and Abram basically showed favor towards Lot. Like, look, you pick what you want, and I'm gonna be all right. He says, so if you take the left, then I go to the right, or if you go to the right, then I go to the left. And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plains of the Jordan. So Lot seen what he wanted, that it was well watered everywhere before Yahuwah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of Yahuwah, like the land of Mizraim as you go toward Zoar. So Lot chose for himself all the plain of the Jordan, and Lot moved east. Thus, they separated from each other. See, Abram, who's loyal to Yah, had loyalty towards his nephew, his brother's son. But I personally don't feel like it was, reciprocated in all aspects. Now, as you go further in the story, Lot is near Sodom and Gomorrah. Yahuwah lets Abram know that he gonna destroy that area. Abram likely was very much considering Lot when he tried to haggle down Yahuwah, saying, well, what if it's this amount of people that are righteous, and getting it all the way down to 5. And of course, Lot was there. He would be considered righteous, or they considered him righteous, but it wasn't 5. So Yah warned Abram and allowed Abram to go forth and help him out of there. But I'm actually skipping a part too. Before it even got that far, being that Lot was in that area, there were some kings that ruling over Sodom and Gomorrah, and they took Lot and everything that he had, all his wealth. And that got back to Abram. So this is before Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abram like, hold on, they took my nephew? I don't play that. Now we see, if you read, you see that, Abraham was going into Mizraim, but he, told his wife to become act like she was a sister and all that because he feared his life. But now Lot is taken by kings, rulers. And Abram like, no, don't play that. He gathered up all his herdsmen, the same ones that Lot people got into it with, and he went and got Lot. He went to battle. His loyalty towards him, and his love towards him say, I ain't treating you bad. Ain't nobody else gonna treat you bad. He went and got his nephew. Let me continue. Let me see where I'm at as far as what I'm gonna read. I'm not gonna read everything that I put down. So I'm gonna talk about some things right now. That's where I'm gonna go with it. Just share some stuff. Okay. So the next person that I'm gonna talk about is Yosef. Yosef was at that time the youngest of his brothers. Then, his younger brother Benjamin come along, but Yosef was favored by his father to the point his father gave him a robe of many colors. Um, he just loved that boy. No, that was by his favorite wife, of course. His first son by his favorite wife, but he loved that boy, spoiling that boy. So all his older brothers were very envious of him. They all brothers. His eldest brother down to him, they should have had loyalty towards him. But they were so jealous of him that they come up with a plot to kill him. But of course, not the eldest brother, like, oh no, don't let's not do that. So they end up, switching it from killing him to selling him. Now they end up selling him to basically, I think, some of Ishmael's descendants, I believe. You had also some of Abraham's other children came by, or whatever I think that is, but he ends up in slavery in Israel. I mean, in Egypt, excuse me. He ends up in the house of Potiphar. Now, his brothers was disloyal to him, but he goes into this man's house and becomes a faithful servant to the point that Potiphar leaves him over everything, all his wealth, everything. Thing about it, Potiphar has a wife who should be loyal to Potiphar. But that wife sees Joseph and how he's handling things and sees him as attractive, and she tries to get him to sleep with her. But his loyalty say, I have a loyalty to Yah, and also I'm in this man's house. I got access to everything in his house. No, I won't access his woman. I won't do it. She basically comes up with a plot that she like, oh, I'm gonna get that. She grabs at his area, the cloth that's covering his area, and snatches it off of him. He runs away naked because he like, I'm not doing this. She takes that and reports back to her husband that Yosef tried to lay with her. Potiphar didn't believe it, but of course he don't want it to get out. Maybe this slave has humbled his wife, and why would the lie that his wife was saying, he didn't want to call her out, so he went with it, and then they end up catching Yosef, and Yosef end up in prison again. Since he was faithful in his master, how he ended up being faithful in prison to the point, even though he was in prison, he still was bringing forth increase to people, giving off visions. So in giving a vision to someone that later on, when the king or the pharaoh had a vision, it was remembered that he gave forth a vision or an answer to a vision, and so they sought after Yosef. Yosef comes forth and basically solves the dream, but in it it says, okay, there's going to be some great distress and a famine is coming. And that, Yosef gives this, the Pharaoh a suggestion that he put somebody trustworthy over all the wealth and resources of Egypt or Mizraim. And the Pharaoh like, well, why not you? You seem to be a trustworthy person, a loyal person. I know all this other stuff happened. You were in the prison, but you the one that can tell me what the dream is. And Yosef did that job loyally. Thing is that Yah was using that situation. Yosef being in Egypt while his people at home going through the famine, he was able to provide for them. He was able to have access to everything in Egypt except for what? Again, Pharaoh's wife. But he had all of the rulership basically, except for authority of the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was the only one authority over him. But he allowed Joseph to operate in his power. So Joseph was able to show favor towards his family that was disloyal to him. Let's keep moving. I'm not going to go to the script on this. I'm going to keep talking. Okay. You got Moshe and Aaron. Moshe given the responsibility to go back to his people and help them serve Yahuwah. Come up out of the house of bondage in Mizraim, in Egypt, and worship Yah. Moshe say, I got a problem with my speech. This man who is an Israelite, but yet was raised 40 years in the house of Pharaoh. So when did he learn his own culture? When did he learn his own language that he that he was a part of? He probably knew it, but he wasn't fluent in it. Then he spent 40 more years dealing with Ethiopia, dealing with Jethro and Zipporah and all that. And so after 80 years, now he's coming to be the focal point in with his people. But he like, I need some help. Y'all like, okay, go get your brother. Now, I'm gonna make this brief right here, this part right here. His brother's supposed to be his mouthpiece for him to, say things. But since he goes up in the mountains to deal with Yah for 40 days, 40 nights, this person that he is supposed to be doing ministry with, that he's supposed to be giving direction, decides, because the people are asking, to make them a golden calf. And of course, with all that, Yah want to destroy Aaron. But Moshe interceded, showed some loyalty towards his brother. He still was very much loyal to Yah, but he like, no, I still need him. Yah ain't forget all that. Keep moving. You got Moshe. Since Aaron was supposed to be his right-hand man, and this man shown he couldn't be trusted, guess what? Yahushua ends up being Moshe's disciple, basically. This man is everywhere with him, and you can see it there, but most people don't acknowledge it. And then, when he talks about him basically passing on, he like, the mantle of leadership gonna pass on to someone that's among you. The one I'm gonna lay my hands on. Many people want to say that that's Yahusha in the future, but this was someone that was supposed to be among them and someone whom he laid hands. And it's text right there that show he laid his hands on him and he passed his mantle of authority over to Yahushua. And Yahushua faithfully did the business of Yah that Moshe was supposed to do. He finished it up to the point that when he was done, he said, as far as me and my family, we will serve Yahuwah. I don't know what y'all gonna do. Y'all probably not gonna follow Yahuwah. And guess what? The people got in line. And for a time, that whole generation, even after Moshe, well, that was after Moshe, even after Yahushua died, they walked in righteousness. They honored and loved Yahuwah. I don't remember any other time that a leader in Israel set something like that in motion. That man was loyal to the call or the direction that Moshe had given him, and he honored Yah, not just with his own self and being, but with his household, and he got the whole nation to be loyal to Yah. So, go forward. King Shaul in place, he has a son, Jonathan. So, of course, Jonathan, being a son, is loyal to his dad, yet Jonathan falls in love. Not, some people try to make it perverse, but no, he gains friendship with Dawid. Dawid, who basically was said to be the next king by the prophet and Yahuwah, because Shaul was doing his own thing. Shaul was doing his own thing. Now, some could say that Jonathan was disloyal to his father because his father was plotting to kill Dawid. That was his plans. But he just like Dawid didn't want to touch the anointed of Yah and kill Shaul. Jonathan didn't want his father to touch the anointed in Dawid. So he would give Dawid a heads up or whatever. And there was times that Dawid could have killed Shaul, but he didn't take that advantage. Jonathan showed his loyalty towards Yah's will, by covering up that anointed man in Dawid to help him be safe. Many could say he was disloyal to his father in doing so, but the acts were basically protecting the will of Yah, because Yah had anointed Dawid to be the next king, and if he would have died, that don't happen. So the will of Yah being done, Jonathan was loyal towards that cause. Maybe he didn't even know that cause, you could say, but he definitely did things to keep Dawid safe. All right, let me see. I got more text to read, but I was sharing other things because my whole focus in the end is a level of loyalty. So let me go. I'm gonna go back to sharing text. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom. Let's get back to the text. I talked enough for a minute. Okay, so we're gonna do with Second Kings or Malachim Bek, and go to what's called chapter 2 and verse 4. And it says, Eliyahu said unto Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Jericho. See, Eliyahu was the prophet, and Elisha was his disciple or his student. And so, and he said, as this is Elisha, as Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. He said, I'm loyal to you. I ain't going nowhere. And they came into Jericho. So he tried to leave him, go to Jericho, but he like, no, I'm going with you. And the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, do you know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from over you today? So these prophets knew the will of Yah that was going to happen, that Eliyahu was going to be taken away. And Elisha knew about it. That's why he like, I'm going to stay close to you. I ain't letting you get out of my sight. I'm going to be there. I'm loyal. I want to be there when this occurs. And it says, and he said, I also know, be silent. So this is Elisha. And Eliyahu said to him, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me to the yard. Is that the Jordan? Probably the Jordan. And he said, as Yahuwah lives, this is Elisha, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Yarden, or probably the Jordan River. But Yarden, because there was no J, but anyway. And Eliyahu took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, just like how the Reed Sea was, or some people said the Red Sea, but the Reed Sea was. so that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be when they had passed over that Eliyahu said to Elisha, ask, what am I to do for you before I am taken away from you? So now he letting him know what's going to happen. And he like, make your request be known. And Elisha said, please let a double portion of your ruach, your spirit, be upon me. Whatever your duties and your responsibilities is to the will of Yah, put that on me. Double portion, please. And he said, you have made it hard to ask. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours. But if not, it is not. So he like, if you see what's going down, cool. You'll get what you ask. If you don't, nothing is yours. And it came to be as they continued on and spoke that see, a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them, and Eliyahu went up by a whirlwind into the heavens, the Shamayim. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, my father. See, he was his disciple. He was basically like a son to him. My father, the chariot of Israel and his horsemen. And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garments, and he tore them into two pieces. And he took up the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and struck the water and said, where is Yahuwah Elohim of Eliyahu? And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, and Elisha passed over. So see, he had already been able to do what Eliyahu had did prior. Let me keep moving. I'm gonna again just tell the story. So we just got through talking about Eliyahu and Elisha. Now the thing is, there was a soldier, loyal to the ruler over him. His name is Naaman. Naaman had leprosy, but he heard from an Israelite woman that worked or that was a slave to his master also, that there is a prophet that is able to heal you of your leprosy. So he sought him out, and it was Elisha. Now, Elisha really like, okay, I'll help you out, but you got to go dunk in the Jordan or Yarden River 7 times. Now, this river was known to be stinky or, not the most sanitary river, I guess. And so he kept naming off better rivers to probably go dunk in, but, that ain't what I told you to do. So eventually Naaman, begrudgingly did what he was told to do. And he went and dunked himself in the Jordan 7 times. And guess what? His leprosy was gone. Now, the thing is, though, he's so overjoyed. He like, I brought stuff to get his prophet if he was able to do what it did. He went back and tried to offer that stuff to Elisha or Elijah. And he like, I don't need that stuff. I'm good. I'm gonna let another man make me rich when my provision comes from Yah. I'm good. So Naaman like, you sure? And he started traveling back. Now at this time, just like Elisha or Elisha was a disciple of Eliyahu, he got a disciple, a servant. He got somebody in his household that does what he says to do. This man is named Gehazi. Gehazi, dealing with it, even though he over all of the other servants, he like, what? This man offered all that? He ran after Naaman. And now he comes basically bearing false witness or lying, I guess, and saying, my master sent me to come get some of that stuff that you was offering. So Gehazi, being disloyal to Elijah, got what he got. He like, I want this stuff. This is some good stuff. He got the material goods. He basically he was practicing that time's consumerism and materialism. He got that stuff. But of course, the prophet knows. So Elisha, he like, man, what you do that for? But since you did that, the leprosy that fell off Naaman, it be on you, and not just you, your household, and the generations, your descendants after you. Y'all can find that in the text. It's there. So, all right, let me keep it moving. Going back to the text, and I'm going to deal right now with Kepha and Yahusha. So I'm going to start here in Matthew Yahoo, what's called chapter 16, and I'm here at verse 13. And it says, now when Yahusha came into the parts of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his taught ones, his disciples, saying, who do men say the son of Adam is? Who they say I am? And they said, some say Yohanan the Immerser. That's his cousin. And others say Eliyahu. Well, we just got to talk about Eliyahu. He passed on his mantle, or his mantle was passed on to Elisha or Elijah. And others, Yirmiyahu, that would be who we call Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, and you, who do you say I am? And Shimon Kepha, some of us called him Peter, answering said, you are the Messiah, you the Mashiach, the son of the living Elohim. And Yahusha answering said to him, Baruch, or favored are you, Shimon Bar, which means son, Yonah, son of Yonah. Shimon Bar Yonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in the heavens. So he's saying, Yahuwah had to give you this information. And I also say to you that you are Kepha, and on this rock I shall build my assembly, and the gates of Sheol shall not overcome it. And I shall give you the keys of the reign of the heavens, and whatever you bind on earth shall be having been bound in the heavens, and whatever you loosen on earth shall be having been loosened in the heavens. Then he warned his taught ones, his disciples, that they should say to no one that he is Yahusha the Messiah. He's like, don't tell nobody I'm the Mashiach. From that time, Yahusha began to show to his taught ones that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and to suffer much from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and to be raised again the third day. And Kepha took him aside and began to rebuke him. He's like, nah, that ain't true. Saying, be kind to yourself, master. This shall not be to you. But he, who was he? Yahusha turned and said to Kepha, get behind me, Hasatan. You are a stumbling block to me, for your thoughts are not those of Elohim, but those of men. Then Yahusha said to his taught ones, his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake, his tree, and follow me. Wasn't no cross, but anyway. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. Let's keep it moving. So we see Kepha is identifying that Yahusha is the Mashiach. But then when Yahusha, the Mashiach, starts revealing the plan or the will of Yah, Kepha steps out and jumps off the porch and basically said, no, that ain't gonna happen. But he had to get corrected and checked by Yahusha, let him know, no, if you ain't agreeing with this, you basically Hasatan. You an adversary. You're not on team. You an adversary. So he had to check him in. He had to chastise him a little bit, tell him some hard truth, that maybe, it wasn't comfortable for him to hear, but that truth is what he needed to hear. So let's go over here to Matthew 26. And while he was still speaking, who was he? Yahusha, Yahuda, which many call Judas, one of the 12, with a large crowd with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. And he was delivering him up. He was delivering up Yahusha up, gave them a sign saying, whomever I kiss, it is he, seize him. And going straight up to Yahusha, he said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. He betrayed him with a kiss. And Yahusha said to him, friend. He still called him friend. Why have you come? Then they came and laid hands on Yahusha and seized him. And look, one of those with Yahusha put out his hand and drew his sword, and striking the servant of the high priest, he cut off his ear. Then Yahusha said to him, return your sword to its place, for all who take the sword shall die by the sword. So let's skip down and see. This is after he'd been captured. They dealing with him, roughing him up a little bit. And it says, and those who had seized Yahusha led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together. But Kepha, that's that Peter, Kepha, followed him at a distance to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. And the chief priests and the elders and all the council were seeking false witness against Yahusha to put him to death. Man, they willing to lie on this man or the Mashiach. They're willing to lie on him. But they go through all of that back and forth and everything. But Kepha, he followed, but he stayed at a distance. He like, I'm loyal. See, there was a time prior to this that Yahusha called him out and told him, you're going to deny me 3 times. He's like, no, I never. This man all up in, like, no, I never. Now, remember, he already done, jumped off the porch and, saying that no, Yahusha, you won't surely die and all this different, that plan that you put out there, no, that ain't it. He already done stepped off the porch and did that. Now, it comes to the point that Yahusha let him know, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cocks crow. They buy the temple and stuff like that. So you got to wonder if they're talking about chickens, because if chickens roam anywhere, so they would end up probably getting the priests killed or whatever they was by the the holy place, whatever, the temple. So I don't think that's what it was. The cockcrow probably was a night watchman or somebody, somebody, perched over and stuff. But anyway, that's a rabbit trail. So let's get back to this. Somebody seen Yahusha getting snatched up after Yahuda betrayed him with a kiss, and they cut off an ear. Now, if you've seen the Passion, you'll see the story and the narrative. He healed the ear with everything, but I believe that's so. But yeah, but that's still a movie. But then let's go. Let's go to what happened. And Kepha sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him saying, "And you were with Yahusha of Galilee." She calling him out. She like, you with that dude. But Kepha, or he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you say." Like, I don't know that. How we say it. I don't know that. And he was going out into the porch. Another girl saw him. Not the first one, but another girl, and said to those there. And this was one of Yahusha of Nazareth. So they identifying all his localities and stuff like that. It said Galilee, now Nazareth. They like, man, we recognize you. You with him. You loyal to him. But right now he gonna show some disloyalty. He say, but again, Kepha denied with an oath. I do not know the man. Like, I don't know that Ian. I don't know him. And after a while, those who stood by came and said to Kepha, "Truly, you are one of them too, for even your speech give you away." Like, come on, stop playing Ian. You roll with that dude. You know that's your that. Come on, that's your team. Come on, stop playing. Then he began to curse. Kepha got to look. I don't know that. I don't know that. Leave me alone. Man. I'm just, interpolating a little bit because, of course, there wasn't no English back there. But then he began to curse and swear, saying, "I do not know the man." And immediately a cock crowed. And Kepha remembered the word of Yahusha, who had said to him, "Before a cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times." And going out, he wept bitterly. Man, this dude was toe up because everything that was prophesied or said was going to happen laid down and happen. Man, this dude was jacked up. He like, man, I done betrayed. I done. Oh man, did I ain't even had that on the screen. Let me go back and see. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna read it again and show y'all can see me read it. It ain't that long, so I'm gonna read it again. And it says, "And Kepha sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him, saying, 'And you were with Yahusha of Galilee.' But he denied it before them, saying, 'I do not know what you say.' And as he was going out into the porch, another girl saw him and said to those there, and this one was with Yahusha of Nazareth. But again he denied with an oath. He swearing and with an oath, 'I do not know the man.' And after a while, those who stood by came to him and said to Kepha, 'Truly you are one of them too, for even your speech gives you away.'" So, hey, this, when you stay in a certain place, you have a tone in your voice. You yeah. When you're in the north, you sound like north, south, that southern twang or whatever. Mm-mm. Then he began to curse and to swear, saying, "I do not know the man." And immediately a cock crowed. And Kepha remembered the word of Yahusha, who had said to him, "Before a cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times." And going out, he wept bitterly. So let's go for it. We have the death, burial, and resurrection occur. You got Yahusha showing back up on the scene or whatever after he supposedly dead. So he resurrected. And so this so happened to be a time that Kepha out here fishing. Now you got people that push the narrative that Yahusha never eat fish or whatever, but he tells him where to go or where to put his net at so he can catch fish, so he can cook these fish. So the disciples of Yahusha was eating fish. You got the fish in the loaves, all this different stuff, but that's a rabbit trail again. Let me bring it back in. So let's hear. We're looking at Yohanan or John 21. And we're going at what would be called verse 15, because there were no numbers back then, but it says, when therefore they had eaten breakfast, Yahusha said to Shimon Kepha, to Peter, Shimon, son of Yonah, or Bar Yonah, do you love me more than these? He said to him, or Kepha said to him, yes, master, you know that I love you, know that I'm loyal. Even though them acts before show, nah, them 304s ain't loyal. Okay. He said to him, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. He said to him again, the second time, Shimon, son of Yonah, do you love me? He felt like, man, he said, yes, master, you know that I love you. He said to him, shepherd my sheep. Man, this man, Kepha getting fatigued with these questions. He's like, man, you already know the answer. What you asking me this for? Let me stop. And he said to him the third time, Shimon, son of Yonah, do you love me? Kepha was sad because he said to him the third time, do you love me? Now remember, he denied him 3 times, and he didn't think that he would. He like, nah, I never do that. So right now, this man is humble. You know, he done had the same question asked to him 3 times, and he already know he messed up 3 times. So here you go. Do you love me? And he said, Master, you know all. You know that I love you. Yahusha said to him, feed my sheep. And then it says, truly, truly, I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and walked where you wish. But when you are old, you shall stretch out your hands, and another shall gird you and bring you where you do not wish. Now, this is he signifying by what death he would esteem Elohim. It's talking about Yahusha. And having said this, he said, no. They're talking about Kepha. He said, now this he said, signifying by what death he would esteem Elohim. And had, okay. And having said this, he said to him, follow me. And Kepha, turning around, saw the taught one whom Yahusha loved following. Some say that's Yohanan, who also had leaned on his breast at the supper and said, Master, who is the one who is delivering you up? That's when he was dealing with the Yahuda situation when Judas betrayed him. Seeing him, Kepha said to Yahusha, but Master, what about this one? Yahusha, you asking about the loyalty of somebody else, Kepha. You tripping. But Yahusha said to him, if I wish him to remain till I come, what is that to you? You follow me. Like, you worried about another man's loyalty when you done already slipped up multiple times. You worry about you. Don't worry about this man. You get your house in order. You stop playing with me. You have a level of loyalty, Kepha, and you feed my sheep. You take on the responsibility of doing what I was doing. I was being a shepherd, and now I'm putting you over my flock. Feed them. You have a many out here that's over people and operating like they're their flock and not Yahuwah's. And they demand a level of loyalty. The problem is, in all these stories that I brought before you, loyalty was going on with men, except for this, the situation with Adam and Yahuwah. But the greater part of that situation, or those many situations, was those men were to have a loyalty to Yahuwah. Moshe, even though he rescuing his brother, or his brother making golden calves and stuff like that, and he's saving his life, Moshe had a loyalty to Yahuwah. Yosef saved his whole family out of his loyalty to Yahuwah, because he was able to get dreams answered, all these different stuff. Look at Elisha. He's so loyal to Yah. He granting healing for leprosy, but he ain't looking for no reward from man, because he like, Yah got me. He ain't focused on what men usually focus on, which is things. He like, I ain't worried about that. You need something that only Yah can provide through me, and Naaman was healed. See, I'm gonna try to have my household be loyal to Yah. I don't have many people that I believe that are loyal to me, and that's cool as long as they're loyal to Yah. That should be their first priority. I've told many of friends that you got a wife, your wife's supposed to come before me, so I expect that. Loyalty, that's blind or does not have conditions to it, it's crazy to me. This unconditional love that people teach of, that you can't show me nowhere in the text. When you love Yah, the condition is you got to obey him, accept his chastening, his correction when you love him. I love him, so hey, I don't want to be whooped, but again, Yah whoop me. If this cup can pass away from me, cool. But if not, Yah whoop me. If it's gonna make me better, it's if all things are gonna work for the good for those who are obedient to Yah, I'm gonna be obedient so that all things can work for the good, so I can line up with his will and be in his will, thus reign with him forever. Abiyah, thank you for the Shabbat. May we work on being loyal to Yah. May we lay down our issues and our problems with others. There's many times, Yah, that I've had issues with others and wanted to eliminate them from my life. But when I spoke to you, I didn't get that release to release them. So got to keep it moving. And a lot of times I thank you that what I may view as distraction is something that actually is causing me to build up a new level of endurance. I thank you for this Shabbat, for my family, when we get ready to meet later, and for all those that are connected to me. Anyone who watched this video, may they, not in loyalty to me, but in loyalty to you, support the ministry. I'm not asking for no money or whatever, but I thank them for watching the video, and hopefully it causes them to reach to their word and start studying stuff. Because everything that I mentioned outside of sharing the text, may they go look those things up and not just accept my word, but be Bereans and challenge it, so that that be an act of loyalty towards you. Don't want them to just trust me blindly, but they are to trust you. So in that, they should seek you out in every matter that's brought before them by a man. Me being a man, I'm bringing forth things that I believe you are directing me to bring to people, not out of malice, but out of loyalty to you. May you reveal when I'm out of line and also reveal when I'm on point on doing your will, so that those that speak contrary or even cast dispersions towards my way, those same ditches that they build for me, they fall in and you rescue me and keep me whole and this household whole. I thank you for that in Yahuwah's name. Thank you to Yahusha, the high priest, who intercedes. But I'm always looking towards my King, Yahuwah, my Father, Yahuwah. Hallelujah. All praise to Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom. And yeah, I'm tired. So that's why my eyes are slit. I don't do nothing else, but I am tired. Hallelujah. Love y'all. Ahaba.